This is Johanna Gretschel here from Flow Sports here at the AAU Junior Olympic Games with Carl Lewis, the most decorated track and field Olympian in U.S. history. Welcome here, Carl. Can you tell us a little bit about your own experience growing up in the AAU?
Oh, thank you very much. I tell you, I had an amazing experience growing up. First of all, I started in 1970 running AAU track and field, and I wasn't the best kid. I was a small little spunky kid, and then in 1974, we went to our first nationals, which were in Pasadena. And I'll never forget it, but we raised it by taking cards and going around from home to home and asking them to put coins in the cards to raise money to go to that. And I still have the picture of we were leaving and how important that was to us. And then a few years later, it was my breakthrough. And I had a big breakthrough when I competed in the AAU out in Nebraska and jumped 25 feet as a junior in high school and ran 9.3 in 100 yards. And I said, it just came around. So it's been an amazing experience, and starting with the Willingboro Track Club, and really not using the AAU, but just being a part of this. And then it wasn't just for us, me running for the track club, but it was a family. My mother and father were the coaches for the team, along with other people. All my friends ran track. So my experience growing up was AAU track and field.
Can you go back to being that young Carl before your big breakthrough? You know, what got you through those days, and what sort of advice would you lend to young athletes really just starting out in the sport who are hoping to maybe one day make the Olympics?
Well, the biggest thing is that, look, I'll tell you, there's no correlation between youth success and adult. So if you're a small kid and you're not having success, stay at it, keep learning. Because one of the things my parents did and my friends did, they encouraged me to keep trying to become the best athlete I could be, not worried about winning when I was young. So even when I wasn't having a lot of success and I was smaller, I was honing my technique, I was getting my confidence. So when my body started to catch up, then all of a sudden the performance is there. Look, this is supposed to be about having fun. Find the way in it, and I talk to not only the young people but to the parents. Do not create expectation in your children. We don't know how well they're going to be. The ones that are not as good generally go up and beat the kids that are better when they're smaller. So just make sure if you focus on them having fun and telling the kids everyone's not going to win every event, and if you're not good in the sprints, then try the distance. If you're not good there, try the throws, try the jumps. That's how I ended up in the long jump, because I was trying to find something I was half decent in. So just find a way to have fun and enjoy. Even if you don't win, you can enjoy it. And especially now in a time with social media, because you can stay in touch and you could do those things. So the biggest thing for parents, back off, let the kids have fun. For the kids, you never know what's going to happen. Just try to hone your talent the best you can.
How old were you when you first started long jump?
I started long jumping when I was 10 years old. I started track and field at 9. I started jumping at 10. I did the long jump and the triple jump and the hurdles. I even did the shot put and the discus, all that stuff when I was young, trying to find somewhere to fit in. But the long jump was something that I gravitated to, because when my mother started the track club that first year, boys were not on the team in 1969 rather, I'm sorry. And so what my parents did is they brought us to the track, and this is true story. They told my sister and I, who was 7 and I was 9, they said, go over to the long jump pit and just act like it's the beach and make sand castles and all that stuff. So the honest, the goodness, true story, my first experience with track and field was making sand castles in the long jump pit like it was a beach, because I'm from New Jersey. So it's only fitting that years later I became a long jumper, and the last Olympic event I was in the long jump pit. That's true.
That's a good story. So if you see kids hanging out playing in the sand, you wouldn't yell at them to get out of the sand? You kind of can relate to that a little bit?
Oh no, if I see kids playing in the sand, I'm gonna say play it up and keep a little bit of it, because you may want to keep it for later on. You know, when I was in Atlanta, I actually went back to the pit after everyone calmed down and everyone left the stadium and took some sand. And I just took some because I wanted to keep that moment. But boy, it sure would have been great to have had some sand at Kennedy High School, Willingboro, New Jersey from the beginning.
Who are some of your idols when you were growing up and starting to get into long jump?
Well, early on, I remember Bob Beamon's long jump. And I was obviously, I didn't remember the Olympic Games, but I remember seeing the distance. And I guess the first thing was Steve Williams. Steve Williams was my guy. I loved Steve Williams. He was a sprinter, the American sprinter. He never made the Olympic team, but that was my guy. And then when I met Jesse Owens, that just kind of blew me away. And I met Jesse Owens when I was 13, and it just blew me away, and I was mesmerized by everything that he did. So I would say that they were the biggest influences. But I was a person that studied the sport, because when Jesse Owens actually introduced himself and spoke, I was so enthralled that I wanted to know everything about him. And of course that had me gravitate into the other things that he dealt with. And then it made me curious about the history of the sport. So I knew every event, every sport, everything, and they used to have these old documentaries on PBS in those days. I watched them every single week from Bud Greenspan, and I was just inspired. And so I would say, as a long jumper, Bob Beamon for sure, but as a track person, track athlete, Jesse Owens and Steve Williams.
I think I heard a story about when you were 10 and you measured out what Bob Beamon's world record was. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, when I was old enough and I started running track, because when Bob Beamon set the world record, I wasn't even running track. So when I said, God, 29 feet, and I went and took that and measured it in the front yard, and it was like, geez, that's like farther than a bus, you know. So, and especially when you're small like that, you it just looks even bigger on an area like that. So it was just amazing. And another thing that I did when I was growing up, I liked Ralph Boston. But I wouldn't say I was a fan of Ross, or wasn't. I respected him. And I remember in the magazine Track and Field News one time, they had this story that said, Ralph Boston, king of the 27-foot jumps. Well, I don't remember how many it was or anything, but I was about 13 or 14. So I tore this article out, put it up on my bulletin board, scratched his name out, and put my name there. so that was the first time I claimed 27 feet from Ralph Boston's article.
A little premature.
Exactly. You know, I wasn't, just like I tell the guys, put your name on it. And I was just dreaming in my room, and I all these things are gone now, and I wish we could keep them. And that's why I love the times now, and I love what parents do is they document every single facet of these lives. I know the kids are like, oh my God, Mom, you're always shooting pictures, always taking everything. And we feel like we overanalyze. But at the end of the day, I would love to have all the video, and I'd love to have the articles, all the things that I did growing up. It'd be amazing. I'd love to see a little me running around just like the kids. So continue to do that. Document all this stuff, take pictures and go videos, go see your kids. Trust me, they'll appreciate it later on.
Well, that does lead into my next question a little bit about, how do you think the landscape of youth track and field specifically has changed since you were a youth athlete, and how do you see it continuing to develop in the next 10 years?
Well, the one thing, I think the bright spot of track and field is youth. The kids, it's still vibrant, it's still exciting, the families still support it dramatically, as we can see, there's so much everywhere. And I think the biggest change really is social media. Is you because you're able to tell the stories. Before, the stories had to be things we passed down like the old times. Now stories are real and live, and I think it's amazing. I think it's great that everyone can watch this around the country. They can see these young people do their thing. It's not just about being seen, it's just about being experienced. So the more the merrier. The more we can do to expose these kids, the more the kids can use social media to keep in touch. And the more we can use, whether through coaching, through interaction, through coaches talking, through me being at an event like this, having an opportunity to not only talk to coaches, but for them to talk back to me tomorrow or the next day to ask questions. I think that's the greatest thing about youth sports right now.
And do you think social media also just increases the profile of the sport, maybe making more kids join who wouldn't necessarily have joined track and field?
Well, yes, I do. I think social media does help in that regard, because what happens, you can tell a story and people know what you're doing. It's so easy for me as a coach to, because of the internet and social media, because I can find out who people are, I can find out what they're doing, I know their performances, I can look them up in 30 seconds. But it also tells me about their character and who they are. So I'm going to look at the camera and say this. So be careful what you say on your social media profiles and how you talk and who you talk to, because we're watching that too, by the way.
Carl Lewis is watching your tweets.
I sure am, before you know it.
Can you tell us about the partnership with The Perfect Method and AAU?
Well, yeah, The Perfect Method is exciting for me, because when I was growing up, my mother had a great relationship with so many athletes because she was an athlete. And I remember John Carlos coming through and all these different coaches coming through and just kind of working with us as kids. and expose it to us. Well, now the perfect method allows every AAU coach to have me as a mentor, and also me to have every AAU coach as a guide. And so we can work together to help these young people become the best that they can be. And that's happening because of the internet and new media. You know, a couple of years ago, someone asked me to do a video. And I was like, well, the video is great, but that's kind of 90s. How can we use new media to interact with everyone on earth? And this partnership is just an amazing opportunity for all the people of the AAU to get the exact same opportunity I had. Mine was more personal because I met these people, but this gives me a chance to be in everyone's track, on everyone's team, and talking to everyone's coach.
And there's also an in-person aspect to it also, right? Yes,
there's an in-person aspect. You know, what's exciting is that it's not only we'll be able to do through the media, because that information's there in the cloud, you have it forever, but we're also going to be doing clinics, a certification program for coaches to get them so they can learn this information. Being at events like this, which is amazing, where I can interact with the kids. And it's not always just about coaching and track and field. It's also about just talking to them, letting them know I hear and I care about what they're doing, signing autographs or their book bag or their bag, meeting their parents, saying, hey, I saw you in that race, you know, pick yourself up. That's just as important to me, and the perfect method allows us to make that interaction and stay together all the time.
Do you have a favorite memory of competing at a youth championship like this, maybe before your high school days, before your big breakout?
Yes, and you know what? I'm glad you asked me. Still, my greatest memory really is like the Olympic Games and everything else, but actually the most impactful, important, game-changing, life-changing event for me was AAU track and field. When I was a junior in high school, and I jumped 25.9 in Memphis, Tennessee. That was it. I mean, I was a 24-foot jumper, 24 high, but then all of a sudden I broke through and jumped 25.9 and won a national championship. That was it, because therefore going into my senior year in high school, my thought process went from, oh, I'm a 24-foot jumper, and I didn't win state my junior year, by the way. I never won state. And so now all of a sudden I'm thinking, I want the indoor national record, I want the outdoor national record. It was a game changer for me. So AAU really defined me. If I didn't have that meet, my senior year would not have been the same. And without that senior year, I probably never would have met Coach Tellez.
So it really set the tone for the rest of your career.
Absolutely, it set the tone. And I think so it's so important for you young people. You may not think that these events are important. They say, oh, I'll just do it, whatever. I made the junior national team, I'll just go to that. No, all of these events are important, because you never know what the event is going to be that tips you off. You know, I was in Memphis because my brother played professional soccer, and he was there, and so we decided to go to Memphis because I could stay with him and do the event. I went by myself. We had a great time. But if I had not gone to Memphis, then everything would have been a little bit different. And that was just before the AAU meet here that was on television in Nebraska. So these events, not just my whole AAU career, but there's certain ones I can pick out that made the difference in me becoming the athlete that I became. Wow,
that's pretty cool to hear. And just being here at this event, you know that moment's going to happen for a lot of kids here as well.
Well, that moment will happen. And the thing about it is that no one loses. Everyone says that everybody wins, but the reality, they really do, because the kids that come to these events that may not be the best athletes, they may not run professionally or the next level or even college, but they're setting up a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle early, and they understand, hey, I could do this. And then the others go on to the next level. It may help them with college and scholarships. Then some go on to the next level, become Olympians one day. So really everyone does win, because it creates a lifestyle that's going to change you and make you better. And even people years later that you're going for a job or something, they're going to say, oh, yeah, I ran AAU track and field. Well, they know you're hardworking and disciplined and focused. So this is an amazing event. And it has every emotion. You're going to see a laugh and a cry and a smile and a hurt and anger and fulfillment, drop batons, winning races. You see everything, and that's what's great about track and field.
Thanks so much, Carl.
Okay, all right.